And Juliana, if you could text when we are live, I will give indication to Phil. Okay, we're live now.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Phil Ahrens, acting president of the Public Design Commission. We will now begin the public meeting with consent agenda items 28231 to 28255. Staff has noted that there are no recusals. Are there any other recusals to note? No, let the record show there are no other recusals. I now call for the vote. Commissioners, when I call your name, please state your vote for the consent agenda. Lori? Deborah?
Approval.
Karen?
Approval.
Ethel?
Approval.
Merrill?
Approval.
And I also vote for the approval of all. The consent agenda is now approved with the conditions noted. We will now commence the public hearing portion of the meeting. The first item is number 28256, a resolution of the Public Design Commission to allow remote participation by commissioners with an extraordinary circumstance. Design Commission Executive Director Saroshi will present the proposal. For our standard procedure, applicants, Saroshi will give the presentation. The public testimony will be heard, and then the commission will ask questions, deliberate, and vote. We will hear in-person testimony first, followed by testimony from remote participants. We can now proceed with the presentation.
Thank you, Phil. So to summarize what we see on this screen, that's our actual resolution. Per amended open meetings law, the commission can vote to allow commissioners to participate remotely, provided that there is quorum in person and due to an extraordinary circumstance. The public can continue to participate in person or remotely. Our meeting will be live streamed and available on YouTube. So to describe what this is, that we have to have 6 people in person to have quorum, but beyond that, if there's an extraordinary circumstance such as illness, caregiving, a significant or unexpected circumstance such as funeral, bereavement, significant professional event such as receiving an award, a significant life event such as birth of a child, grandchild, or wedding, or any others that may be applicable, that you could be present remotely and your vote still count. So this would add flexibility, and that is what we're asking to be voted on today. Are there any questions?
I would just say I think this is a great positive change, allowing for participation by commissioners in unusual circumstances. There will be obviously a full quorum in person here. So the public meeting concept is not in any way violated. I would say that I know I am strongly in favor of the change.
Take a vote now.
Is there anyone in the Zoom
Oh, yes, testimony.
who wishes to testify?
There is no one in the Zoom meeting signed up to testify.
So there's no one in the Zoom, there's no one in the Zoom room, and there's no one in person to testify. So we will now proceed to take a vote. If there's no further conversation among commissioners. Excellent. I'll take a roll call vote on item 28256. Commissioners, when I call your name, please state your vote. Lori? Deborah?
Approve.
Karen?
Approve.
Ethel?
Approve.
Merrill?
Approve.
And I vote in the affirmative as well. Let the record show that the resolution was passed unanimously by the commission. Moving on. The next public hearing item is 28257. A resolution of the delegation to the executive director for the approval of minor modifications to projects after final approval and for utility and mechanical installations.
Can I ask a question on this particular point?
Of course.
I think you did a great job on this, and I think it's terrific. It does bring up the question of something that was on the consent agenda. If I'm out of order, I can withdraw the question. But on the consent agenda, for instance, there was a piece on doing something on Randall's Island. Randall's Island is now about to have a little bit of a mixed use kind of thing. I think that you need the flexibility to be able to adjust to circumstances on the ground as they occur. So would that include, I see we had the installation of a security booth at Randall's Island, blah, 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 fire training academy, blah, blah. Would you have to come, will this resolution that we're doing now take care of your ability to meet demands on the ground without gathering us?
So
As things happen on Randall's Island. Someone might want to say, well, we can't do this now, or blah.
So-
I'm just curious how much it covers.
right, I think this is very particular to minor post-approval modifications and projects such as building systems and small-scale projects. So with Randall's Island, it would likely come back to the commission, because I think it's important for projects that don't meet this criteria to still maintain public oversight, and that's this is very specific. However, if that instance, which on the top of my head, I'm not remembering the exact thing, if it met the criteria I'm about to describe, then the staff would have the authority. But yeah,
I just want to say that I have no problem
of course.
extending the authority of the people who are the professionals here.
Right.
To meet challenges as they come up. I was just trying to
No, of
looking
course.
for clarification, because the Randall's Island thing
Yeah,
is kind of be a lot.
Yeah.
Of public use.
right. No, that would not be applicable under this delegation. And also so that in any instance where there might be any gray area, as I will present very soon, there will be a commissioner looking at the list and being like, no, this is not appropriate. Let's present to the commissioners. And as staff, of course, if I see that in front of me, I'll also say the same, because it's very important that we go through our,
I think my question is a little different. I am saying
right.
that in emergency circumstances.
Yeah.
Which might occur
Mhm.
now on Randall's Island
Yeah.
as a result of getting an influx of people.
Right.
Right, who are going to be using Randall's Island in ways we haven't thought about before. I think you need to have a mechanism.
Right.
To use your judgment.
Interesting.
The chairs, the vice chair,
Right.
collectively with you. To move things along without gathering. That's all, because
Hmm.
there are going to be some emergencies there.
Right, well,
Just
that's
no
very
question.
interesting to note. I will proceed with this and then I will circle back to that. I
You
think
don't have to circle.
it'll
back,
help.
but Just
note
know-
that in the back of my,
Just
yeah.
keep it as a reference.
No, I appreciate that. So today I will present the resolution to delegate approval authority to the executive director. This approval authority will be limited to minor post-approval modifications, projects such as building systems and small-scale projects that are routine and very minimal in design. I will walk through why we are proposing this resolution, what the resolution is, what these projects look like, and how we will continue to maintain oversight from our commission. And I will also describe why this will improve efficiency. And lastly, I'll present the actual text we're voting on. And throughout the presentations, there are snippets from the actual text. So if you see that, that's what they are. So yes, one, there's already a city precedent at New York City Landmarks Commission. Then also, we think that commissioners can focus time and energy on larger design projects where their feedback can be more impactful. A great amount of repetition and redundancy exists in these types of projects that would fall under this approval authority. Again, timelines could be expedited to help prevent delays during construction. And lastly, many of these projects submitted to PDC are either invisible or minimally visible to the general public from the right of way. So what is this resolution? We know that we can further improve the functioning of the PDC as it fulfills its purpose to review works of art, structures, and layouts of public ways and grounds. It proposes to delegate authority to the PDC executive director for the review of minor post-approval modifications, projects such as building systems related to codes, regulations, and standards, and small-scale projects that vary minimally in design. So an example of what this might look like is when an ADA push button that was on a freestanding pole moved to the glass surface of the door itself. This solution was not foreseen at the time of the approval. So now if I see this and the staff sees this, we would be able to put this on the list because it falls under all the criteria. So the criteria we're talking about are as follows. So in order for this to be applicable under the delegation, the modification has to be consistent with the approved design intent and maintain the visual integrity of the project. It should not alter any element that was approved and was a subject of controversy as evidenced by testimony. It does not limit or contradict, it does not contradict any limitation made explicit in our certificate or if requested by any members of the commission. It does not alter design elements previously noted or commended. And lastly, it does not alter any significant existing architectural or landscape feature. Another example of what this looks like are really mechanical systems related to building codes. And they're circumscribed in specifications in our energy code standards and other regulations. Also, technology evolves. So often these come back to us a lot and we have to, keep putting it on our agendas, but we could, in this case, handle it and then put it on our list. Building systems related to codes, regulations, and standards. So this involves HVAC units, emergency generators. I mean, you can read the whole list here. These systems must be invisible or minimally visible to the general public and not change the character of the building or site. And they should not remove or alter any significant architectural feature and maintain the visual integrity. Through wall installation should be minimally detailed and not detract from the building or the features. So an example of where what we mean by minimally visible is just that, like if you're standing on the street or the sidewalk, you can't see it. If you can see it and it's very extensive or expansive, we don't put it on this list, or if we do, we can take it off. So what do these projects also look like? So small scale projects that are routine and very minimally. For example, this storefront entrance alteration going from this to this, or this 7-Eleven signage going from what it is, staying in the same place, but perhaps being illuminated. Then there is a lot of ADA access ramps that are installed, but do not change the look and feel of the building and are following ADA standards. And we also have these areaways, which align themselves to their neighbors and are going by building code and regulation. So these are examples of projects that would apply, and also ball field pole lighting, things that we see often and feel like we don't have to always come in front of the whole commission and put in our agendas. So this is all of them all at once. Small scale projects that vary minimally. These are the criteria that they have to follow. Essentially has to keep with the character proposed in the same location, in keeping with ADA guidelines. They do not extend beyond the adjacent properties, and also ball field lighting should just meet the standards of athletic field illuminations. And we, with our commissioners, decided that at least one member shall determine that a project falls within one of the categories described above before it's approved by the ED or the PDC's next senior most director in case the ED is on vacation or absent. So we feel this resolution would really allow projects to proceed earlier. Around 20% of PDC's typical project review submissions would qualify for delegation, and this is really a matrix of images that apply. Construction would not be delayed by minor post-approval amendments. And lastly, we really reiterating that you can focus time and energy on larger, meaningful projects, especially in the public eye, that wouldn't apply under this delegation. Here's the image of the text, and this is what we will be voting on today, which is in writing what I just presented to you today. And questions?
So.
Yeah.
Is it a requirement or a suggestion that one member of the commission will approve or question or review? Is it or you draw the one person from, let's say, 3 or 4 on the commission who have, technical expertise, which, for example, I may not have.
No, of course.
Other things. So that's my big question first, to just understand that.
Yes, so we spoke with Ken Set at length about this because I feel that we very much appreciate his perspective that there should be oversight and that one person who wants to look at it or volunteer should be able to look at it. So he has volunteered this time around, and in the event that he is unable to do it anymore, we would talk amongst ourselves again and figure out who else could do it. So this wouldn't just fall upon someone without, they're willing to take on the role or a desire to. Yeah, no, go ahead.
And something else to mention is that the list would not be compiled by the commission.
Yeah.
The staff would prepare the list and then send that over to a commissioner for that oversight. So you wouldn't be expected to pull everything that you think
Right.
needs the delegation. Staff would already do that in advance. So
Thank you for that
to try and make
clarification.
things much easier,
Yeah.
it should be a fast thing. It's
Yeah.
more so like if there are any red flags that the commission that the commissioner is concerned about.
Any more questions? Yeah. Great. Move. Thank you, Roshi. Nobody has signed up to testify in person. Rebecca, has anyone signed up to testify remotely?
No, there is no one signed up to testify remotely.
Great. And anyone who has a hand up? No? Commissioners, any further comments? If not, we'll take a vote on this item. All right, I will now take roll call on item 28257. Commissioners, when I call your name, please state your vote. Lori.
Approved.
Deborah.
Approved.
Karen.
Approved.
Ethel.
Approved.
Daryl.
Approved.
And I vote in the affirmative as well. And let the record show that the vote was unanimous in the approval of this item. We have our last public hearing item, 28258, which is the preliminary review of the installation of 35 medallions on Avenue of the Americas between 42nd and 59th Street in Manhattan. For our standard procedure, applicants will give their presentation, then public testimony will be heard, and then the commission will ask questions, deliberate, and vote. We will hear in-person testimony first, followed by testimony from remote participants. We can now proceed. Welcome.
Morning, Commissioner. Good to see you all. My name is Vic Nadi. I'm Deputy Director of Urban Design and Media from the Department of Transportation. Very happy to be here with you today. Thank you very much for that call. Okay. I'm going to run through the presentation somewhat quickly. I'll go over a little bit of the history. We did submit this back in 2017 or so. Previous comments that addressed with the City Commission, and then obviously have any questions. So we're here today to talk about the medallions before the Avenue of the Americas. Okay, so a bit of history. 1945, this avenue was renamed Avenue of the Americas. These medallions started to go up around that time, but they weren't formally unveiled until 1950. There were 220 of these medallions installed from basically Canal Street up to the park. They were originally made of unfortunately animals and molds and medallions of countries. Not necessarily sure why some folks got more than others. So there was a bit of mystery on it. In the 80s, we did the city refurbish the medallions to bring them back to a state of repair. But time has not been done. And then these throughout today, they have continued to see deterioration. The brackets to hold them up, once this time deteriorated. The porcelain then itself is very, very heavy. Actually, as a material, and so it made it difficult for the agency to maintain this particular type of material. So we've gone through an effort in looking how we could still hold this program, but bring it into sort of modern day standards and something that we looked at redesigning the bracket that holds them, and as well as updating the graphics. So in terms of the project overview and goals, we're looking to basically take the original program, one of the towns that each country, the 35 countries that make up the Americas, one medallion each. And then we install them on light pools. We're looking right now at 47 to 59, but we're still here preliminary. We're going to be assessing the whole project now 59. We're going to have to talk to you about that. But the idea is we have one medallion per country, as well as the new bracket design, as well how to actually maintain by the sure.
Does this work?
No, it's not. Got it. Okay. Got it. Sorry, I will slow down. I can't help it. I'm in the okay, so just to give a quick overview of the Projector, I'm sure many of you are familiar with 6th Avenue, Broad Avenue, pretty typical. This is up in the 50s and high 40s where we're looking to install the medallions. Again, some of the idea, just to be clear, the medallions themselves will go on the light poles, similar to how they're mounted currently. We'll show you that in a little bit. They won't go on any pole that has a traffic signal or signal infrastructure. From a safety perspective, almost nothing goes on those types of poles. The other thing that I'll point out later is we're also planning to ban the use of banners wherever these are installed. So there won't be any visual clutter competing with the medallions on the poles. Here's an example of one that's actually up there. This is at 57th Street. You can see the bracket and the medallion installed towards the top of the pole. Here's an example of one that we had to take down in our shop. You can start to see some of the deterioration that's occurred. This is probably one of the better ones that we have actually. And here you can see some additional examples that are still up on the poles.
Doesn't that look like the streets in Zone has people?
Indeed. So here's just an overview of the locations that we're looking at. Again, this is the sort of 42nd to 59th. There are a few poles that you can see here that have cameras on them, so we're not going to install where there's a conflict with the NYPD security camera. These are all mid-block poles, except for the ones highlighted in red, which are corner poles, but they don't have any traffic signal infrastructure on them. This is the medallion that we had presented to you back in 2017. You can see the sort of new bracket design that is made completely in-house by the agency, so we can fabricate these. So if one fails or whatnot, we don't have to go through a lengthy procurement to buy a new sign. Everything is done by our sign shop. And this was the original design we mocked up the United States, sort of hewed closely to what we had seen previously. Some of the comments that we got from the commission at that point were trying to improve the legibility of the coat of arms. These signs are installed quite high, and the coat of arms tend to be quite detailed. We can only do so much, right? We're not going to be changing the various countries' coat of arms, but we did look at some things, how we can improve that. Studying the typefaces and colors for the name of each country, and then make an effort to remove some or all of the banners, which, like I mentioned previously, we're doing that, no problem, check. So again, this is the original. This is what we showed you in 2017. And then you can see the medallion in front of you. This is where we're currently at. We really did try to make an effort to look at the graphics really intensively. I do have Kim Sillen from our graphics team, as well as Shane Stumiller from, she's an urban fellow with urban design. Sorry for not at the outset. But Kim can speak to a lot of the graphic details that went into this. You'll see in the presentation, we looked at a number of fonts. We looked at the location of the font, the color, the typeface, and really tried to arrive at something that was sympathetic to the proposal, something, a font that has a little bit of character that works well with the coat of arms, as well as sort of how the overall graphic is composed, so that we try to bring the coat of arms a little bit closer to the viewer by putting the font on top, and picking a font, again, that has a sort of a nice relationship, we think, with the overall coat of arms.
Here are the design details. Again, happy to come back to this slide at the end if there are questions, but this is the sort of overall, the type of font, case, size, location, the size of the coat of arms. They all differ a little bit based on each country, but they're generally sort of in that 2-foot range. And the bracket design, as was mentioned, is the same as we showed you back in 2017. So it's a new bracket design, but one that we can manufacture in-house. In terms of what we studied, we looked at all of the signs across sort of the various countries. The first pass, we looked at the sort of shortest country name, the longest country name, which happens to be Peru, and then Trinidad and Tobago. And then we picked out sort of a middle length name to try to get a sense of what the composition looks like across these different countries. We are also working with the Mayor's Office of International Affairs to review each of the medallions with the relevant consulate. So that way we make sure we have their sort of buy-in and sign off before we go to Paris. This is the proposed design. Again, I'll spend some time getting into the font, or we can do that in terms of questions, but we did pick Baskerville, which, and Kim can really speak to some of the details, but we think is a really legible font. It has some detailing that makes it a bit statelier than some of your sort of simple sans serif font, like a Helvetica or an Arial. And so we think that really makes sense in the context of the.
You're gonna do 35 medallions for $150,000?
Yes, actually less than that, but yes. Because it's all in-house. So
That's the difference.
You wanna come back and mine?
Of course. So, I mean, we have, lots and lots of aluminum because we maintain hundreds of thousands of street signs across the city. So there is a bit of an economy of scale that you won't get commissioned. Sorry. Again, we moved the font to the top to try to bring the coat of arms down a little bit, make it more legible to the people that are going to be walking by. Again, these signs will be mounted 25 feet in the air at sort of the top of the light poles. So we're trying to bring the things that are more detailed closer to the viewer. We did look at a couple of different colors, but again, for contrast and legibility and ADA purposes, we really stuck with the black. There's also an option in sort of a navy color, but we really want to make sure this continues to be legible in all contexts. And like I mentioned, all the banners are going to be removed, so it's not competing with anything for legibility. So again, these are slides that just look at some of the different fonts that we were looking at, as well as whether it should be a curved profile or a straight profile. We also looked at font type, whether it was condensed or regular. This is again sort of on the left, you'll see the proposal, just so you have that as comparison across all of the studies. Really focusing on trying to make sure this is as legible as possible. That's been our main goal. Top versus bottom, uppercase versus lowercase, black versus a dark blue. And then this is a quick example of what it might look like actually up on a pole. So you can start to see it. Again, the sign itself will be this bright white vinyl, so you'll get that nice pop color, where the porcelain enamel sort of was a little bit duller, just the nature of its material. And then the bracket being mounted on the side obviously allows for it to be located a little bit lower on the pole too. These are the sign brackets. Like I said, this is being manufactured in-house. So if something goes wrong, we can fix it. That's the biggest thing. Not something we were able to do with the previous sign. So this is, I think, much more sustainable. Yes.
What's the bracket made out of?
It's aluminum. It's a thicker aluminum than our standard street sign. It's 0.8 inches thick instead of the 0.125 bracket. The bracket is as well. The sign, or sorry, the bracket I think is. I will double check. It's either aluminum or a steel. That is then.
Famous.
Yeah. I will confirm that for you for sure. In either case, it is a material that we have and can reproduce and the same effect.
Does anyone get the rest?
Right. Yep. Another point. And the bracket design was reviewed by our bridge engineers and wind tested, so that way we make sure that the previous signs sort of swung with the wind because of the way they were mounted. This won't have that same give, but it's rated to withstand those forces. So this is, the signs will also be double-sided. Sorry, earlier. These are just some of the welding details, and then this is obviously the technical drawing. No, I think it's a structural steel that I think we have to maintain. But I can certainly get back to our sign check to see what those caps are. And like I said, unlike the previous signs, these are vinyl print. So if there is rusting, if there is any issue, it will be a lot easier for us to reprint and reinstall those. And the overall cost for this is pretty minimal in terms of what we're spending on signs across the 5 rows. That's it. Sorry that took a little longer, but happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Oh, sorry.
There are no in-person testimony. Is there any testimony in the Zoom world?
There is not. Rebecca stepped away, but she confirmed there is a remote test.
Okay, thank you very much. So now we will discuss and deliberate, and then when finished, we'll vote. I just want to say, I remember these times when I first came to New York as a kid. I think this should be done by landmarks. But I think they're great. And I'm glad they're being refurbished, and they have a certain, weird historic feel to them, to be honest. I'm glad it's only $150,000 because I'm not sure if it were millions of dollars, I would say it would be worth it, but I think you've solved all the problems and continued, other than the steel issue, which I think is a real one. So for me, at least, I would welcome them back when they're new, refurbished, better mounted, better designed form. And remember my neighbors in the Americas as I walk up on 6th Avenue. Yay.
I just wanted to share Manuel and Kenseth's, because I see it here. So their proposal was that you should engage with the graphic designer to work on the typesetting and spacing for each sign, submitting the design of each individual medallion for review, if possible. Consider a sans serif condensed typeface for the country names. Clarify if the codes of arms from United States protectorates such as Puerto Rico will also be included, and confirm that the materials are durable and the white background will not streak, and you have addressed. I did want to mention all those things in their absence.
Sure, I can respond to a couple of them. One, we are going to come back with each final medallion to the commission, fully designed, typesetted, everything. We have in-house graphic expertise that we're going to do instead of hiring a graphic designer outside the agency, but that is absolutely something we will be doing. The next one was the condensed font. We did look at the condensed font and showed, I think, we personally feel it's not quite as legible as the font that we chose. It's going to be quite high. And I think our big thing is really focusing on legibility. I don't know if Kim, you want to add anything
Yeah,
to that?
we did really look at each emblem, and only very few of them would gain, thank you. Few of them would gain a size increase by condensing the font, because the composition is really different for each insignia, and many of them have some sort of like spike or higher area in the center, and condensing the font will not let that be increased by any rate at all. So we thought it wasn't really worth giving up the legibility for maybe like 2 emblems that would be able to increase in size.
Thanks. And the last one I think was about Puerto Rico.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, the medallions are the official countries that make up the Americas. Whereas Puerto Rico is not an independent country. So we're being very strict. It is, per the UN or the Organization of American States, like they're a member of the country. That's why some of the islands that like the Netherlands controls or France, like those are also not getting their own medallion.
But you can understand these are hot button political issues.
Indeed.
Thank you for the clarification.
So, right, so it is a very valid point, but maybe not ours to settle. So if there's no further discussion, we'll take a roll call vote on, this is preliminary. the preliminary approval of item 2H to 5H. Commissioners, when I call your name, please state your vote. Lori? Deborah?
Approve.
Karen? Ethel?
Approve.
Merrill?
Approved.
And I vote in the affirmative, and let the record show the item is approved unanimously by the Public Design Commission. And this concludes our public meeting. We'll take a short break before commencing with the committee meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go on break.
What time would you like us back, Yoshi?
So you're gonna have to wait and wait. ensure everything is in place. Yes. Okay. The presenter will start.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay, hand it over to Deborah.
Welcome back. We'll now commence the committee meeting. First item is the conceptual review of the reconstruction of the Plaza Queens Civil Court, 8917 Sutphin Boulevard in Jamaica, Queens. Will not hear public testimony or vote on this project today. Presenters, you may start when you're ready.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening to me today. I am Gloria Lau from Stantec. I'm the project manager and landscape architect for this project. And Catherine Lawrence from DCAS will be joining to give a little bit more programming after my presentation. So this project is for the plaza in front of the Queens Civil Courthouse. So our Queens Civil Court is located in the boroughs of Queens in the neighborhood of Jamaica. The red you should see on the map is where the location of the courthouse, and it is directly adjacent to the Queens Supreme Court, which is shown on number 2. It's surrounded by different civic facilities such as library, hospital, and schools. And 2 blocks away is a pretty big community park called Rufus King Park. As you can see from this land use map, is located in a pretty busy commercial corridor. It has a grocery store across, different eateries and offices, and in the neighborhood, a range of multifamily and single family housing. So showing the existing photo, number 1 photo is showing from the intersection of Sutphin Boulevard, which is the major corridor I mentioned, and 89th Avenue on the north. From the intersection, zooming in closer, you can see that closest to the sidewalk are 5 benches and 5 ginkgo trees that's existing right now. And the entrance is much further to the south. So zooming into the entrance area, the entrance, as you can see, the area outside is pretty open, mainly of granite paper. A lot of the papers are in quite bad condition, and there's a lot of uneven settling. So during the rain, there's some ponding, and also water will go into the lobby, flooding the building. So part of the project is also to be fixing some of the uneven settlement. And just to mention, this project is also on top of a parking garage. And one of the major technical issues is that a lot of the water is leaking underneath. So one of the main goal is to fixing the waterproofing at this plaza also. From looking at the entrance into the plaza, you can see that there is a sunken lawn right outside of where the jury is usually waiting for their duty. The lawn is pretty sunken and is surrounded by a granite seat wall, so it's making it pretty inaccessible. Also, you can see the 4 flagpole that is in front, and the signage, granite black signage that's closer to the sidewalk, and we're trying to keep those elements in the plaza also. Further zooming into the plaza and also the lawn area, there's also an air fan that is in the lawn that we also need to incorporate into our design. So this is number 7 is showing from the southern side of Sutphin Boulevard going into the big hardscape in front of the entrance. And number 8, you see mostly people who sit here is usually jury or waiting for the bus on Sutphin Boulevard. So they're pretty much by themselves, and there's not much activity after courthouse hours. As I mentioned, this is on top of a parking garage. So this is just a record drawing showing you how we're going to integrate it with the existing structure. On the left side is Sutphin Boulevard. The sidewalk is not part of our scope. And in the plaza, you can see the ginkgo tree, which is basically a tree pit that is tied to the structural slab. Then you can see the plaza is basically hardscape on top of subcourse and on top of 2.5 feet of lightweight insulation. And then there is a 3-foot soil depth for the sunken lawn. So just so you know that we're understanding to want to keep the current structural design and assembly when we look at the plaza. Just a few things I want to point out in the existing site plan, just to orient you, north is on the left-hand side of the screen and the courthouse is on the top.
The plaza is really separated by the seating area and also just the circulation area. You can see the highlighted yellow is usually where the people who are going to jury duty are queuing in front of the courthouse as they need to go through security. So that's a pretty long line every morning. Just watch. Another thing I want to point out is that there are existing light at the benches. So we are, as we develop our design, we integrate linear lighting into the seating also. And one additional thing I want to point out is that there are currently irrigation installed on the site, but it was broken since day one. So DCAS is really hoping for planting that do not require irrigation to maintain. So understanding DCAS constraint and also the programming of the courthouse, what our design really proposing is having one unifying open space to activate the plaza, but the element to also be low maintenance, easy for the courthouse to maintain. What we're introducing is 3 playful, unique curvilinear planter with benches to be placed throughout the plaza. So those planters essentially precast lightweight concrete with benches with seating on the outside. Some of the 2 that is placed in front of 11, which is the jury waiting room, they have more variety of trees and shrubs to give some more fun planting in front of the courthouse and where people are able to sit. And further on the right, we able to use the planter to activate that portion also, but it's further away from the entrance, and we are keeping low planting to keep visibility to in and out of the entrance, which is the important program that DCAS want to make sure we have. We will be keeping the 5 existing ginkgo tree on the right side, and if you see the 4 small dots is where we're moving the flag post closer to the sidewalk. And then we are also going to introduce concrete paver instead of granite paver, so it's easier to maintain for the plaza. As I mentioned, there will be seating outside of the planter area. And what it does is these concave curbs really create 2 semi-enclosed space. One is mainly for seating for the visitor and juror. So after a long morning, they can have some places to rest and have lunch. And on the right-hand side is more a main area for circulation and queuing. So just zooming in the elevation, showing you how this planter will work. So along the edge of the planting, we will have a higher wall that allow us to build our soil depth for the proposed planting, but also serve as feedback for people who are sitting here. This elevation is looking to the courthouse. So this is the jury duty room on the left. So you see there are more planting in front. And on the right-hand side is where the entrances will be. So there's lower planting, but giving space for people to queue also. Just looking into how it ties into the existing structure. What we are looking to do is keep the existing ginkgo tree. So in keeping the tree pit to be which is tied to the structural slab. And we also will be filling in the lawn area with lightweight soil. So we put the existing paving, we put the proposed paving into the same area. So essentially the planter will be on top of paver, and it allows for the planting to be much more self-contained and easy to maintain for DCAS. For material, looking in the concept, we really want the concrete to be much more lightweight and light gray. We're looking into proposing minimal metal armrests that allow people to have more accessibility. The concrete paper will be neutral color. And the planting concept is really having a low variety of flowering and shrubs to give some more ground level planting interest and flowering trees on top. And just looking into plaza, this is looking from the Sutphin Boulevard. You can see how the curve able to form that quiet space with a in-ground planting as a focal point, and the entrance tucked further back. From the planting area, we're able to make the area less empty with the planting, but also having low planting to keep the visibility. This is looking from the entrance toward the plaza. So all the different curves are able to provide different orientation of sitting and different shade for the people to use during the courthouse hour. So this is essentially my presentation. Really just hope to create a space that could activated area, good for people who are visiting the courthouse and able to maintain by DCAS. So thank you. I don't know, is Catherine want to add some word for DCAS?
Catherine's not on the Zoom yet.
Oh.
I don't know if someone can try getting in touch with her again.
Hi, so Catherine from DCAS was supposed to join us remotely. She's away on vacation actually, so it's possible she's having technical difficulties from wherever she is. I think what we can do today is, I don't know if Donna or anybody else from Stantec would like to speak to it, but I think our commissioners can also give you the feedback in this meeting setting, and then we can move forward from there. So I think commissioners, if you have any questions, now's the time. And we can also unmute Donna if she would like to chime in remotely too.
Anna's not on, but I see C is on, so
Lori has a question.
I was just wondering about, maybe we can go back to a plan. Thank you for your presentation. Lighting, what is the lighting concept here for night? Maybe if you showed us one of the renderings and you could speak to it.
Yeah, so we'll first develop it for the preliminary design, but what we're hoping to do is add linear lighting along the linear lighting, so along the planting, along the planter area.
Like square.
So we probably integrate over here
On the-
and
in the
here, and
ground.
then where the curve. Oh no, with the precast
In the
planter.
precast, there's lighting,
Mhm.
linear lighting,
Yes,
like
dropping the.
down lighting.
We probably have it on the side, so it will more like side lighting going out.
To light the.
Yeah, to like the
Yeah, I mean,
general
that would be
area.
Great to understand.
Yeah, and there's also security lighting at the courthouse also that's going to the plaza.
Great.
Mhm.
So we understand that there's a great deal of queuing that takes place in this
Mhm.
plaza. When the plaza is at its most crowded, would all of those who are queuing be standing in full sun in front of the entrance there?
Usually it's right here. It's a pretty shady from the whenever I go during the morning, and usually they kind of like queue around to the plaza. And I also going there during COVID time, so people are further apart from each other. But there are some, but it's usually pretty shady in that area because of the building, like the taller building on the courthouse side.
Was there any thoughts about in the design about organizing the plan to help shield and give comfort to people who are queuing for long periods of time?
So I think the long period of time, usually within half an hour, what I have observed is that people will sit at the benches, and when the security guard is called, they will be standing in line to go in. So the queuing period itself is not too long, but more they congregated. So we're hoping using seating will allow people to able to sit before the security guard call to them. Another thing we do have a constraint is DCAS is hoping to have less trees in front of the area in order to keep the visibility. So we're hoping to add more tree on the more north side to allow people to able to sit in the shade before they had to queue or during the lunch hours.
But they would be able to sit in the shade on the north side if they weren't in the queue. But what I'm understanding is if they are in the queue, then they're in full sun for a half hour. Right?
Yeah, I think we do have to balance that because really hope to keep the visibility and do not want too many elements to be blocking, but we can look into how we can make that more comfortable.
Yeah,
Also
I'm just
looking into-
wondering if it wouldn't be useful to have a sun study because in the middle of the summer, it's only going to get hotter every summer. And having been on those same kind of lines, waiting to go in to serve my city as a juror, I think, as you know, people can be very resourceful in trying to time things. But given that we're designing this now from scratch and we can be intentional about how we treat our citizens when they're doing public service, right?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And we can look into providing a sunshade study for preliminary. And I think we are talking with courthouse facility, and that is maybe we can also discuss a way they can control the queuing better that will work better with the shade and how the sunshade study work.
Because you guys are putting in, I mean, you have a scheme here and it has some planting beds, and I understand that you're trying to create something that wouldn't require a great deal of irrigation, and that all seems to be happening. But the kind of primary use here is for those queuing to come in to do jury service, and then secondarily as a place for those who work in, if I'm understanding correctly, who work in the building to recreate take their lunch out or whatever. So if I'm the latter group, I'm going to sit on one of those benches, right? And then I have some shade.
Yeah.
There's no tables, but I understand from your comments here that there isn't staffing to bring tables in and out. So understood, that's fine. But I think I would ask the team to look at, I understand that blocking views from the door to the street but there are other ways to provide shade, and to be more intentional, to have the things in the ground plane indicate where you would queue so that you don't have to kind of like game it out.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And we do have facility management on our call from day one. So we'll talk with them also closer on how that circulation can work better with our design. Yeah. I'll talk to them.
Yeah, I was just saying.
Mhm.
Study.
Okay.
I think it's a study. I mean, I know. When are people waiting, where is the line, how are you managing?
Yeah, we definitely look into that and yeah.
As a designer. The ways that you guys can work together on that.
Yeah, that makes
Yeah, exactly. I mean, even if there's I understand that this is a roof garden, essentially, I get it. But, there are, as you know, as a designer, there are ways that you can provide shade and nevertheless through trees and other devices that you might design. So I think we would be doing our jurors a service by making this a more comfortable, it's a stressful situation, right? So.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, we'll look more into that queuing area.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry.
Yes.
There's no ballots open right now, and DCAS is not looking into putting any. I don't know, is Kathleen on the phone, but it's not, they haven't mentioned that is something they want to install.
Is that something DDC can address, or we can ask that question and get back to our?
Yeah, I think we can ask DCAS to follow up on that, but DCAS is the agency that's managing this client of the court tenant and the court operators.
Just, I understand some of the conflicts, and I did read the comments of the commissioners, Deborah, Lori, and others, and I take it that this area is really one of the questions about the sun and being able to sit down are natural questions to promote in an open area. But when I read at least the response of DCAS and even your attempts now, it seems to me that perhaps overwhelmingly the area is one for queuing. And that the basic issue is that there is queuing all day. And that's how it works. So that my colleagues here and suggestions of would there be tables? The answer is no. Okay, find the solar pattern so people can sit and stand. Another question I have is there any way to think of managing the queue so that a percentage of it or whatever that people can queue inside and thereby perhaps reduce the numbers and amount of space for queuing and perhaps promote therefore with more space. I don't know if it's more trees or whatever, but somehow to do better in the balancing. Queuing is, it's too bad always if people have to wait a long time, but okay, if that's what it is, how can the queuing be modified while being safe and so on? I mean, I'm not asking you to answer now, but it seems to be a goal of that could be considered.
Yes, absolutely. I think we can bring it back to talking with DCAS further on this. And definitely will bring it back.
Because even with security, I've seen it, and I think of Manhattan Court, that people continue to queue inside also before going through security. So I don't know, but it just seems like an effort worth going.
I'll bring that to the team.
Can I ask you a question about the plants? You were noting that DCAS does not want anything that requires irrigation, that there was a system and that it went out of function.
Yeah.
How will those plants survive?
Yeah, so we're hoping for low maintenance planting and work with basically DCAS facility to what they usually do water outside. Just keeping something that can maintain and survive our urban condition, but definitely working with DCAS facility management to see what type of planting to choose as we are moving forward.
Will you provide them with the care guide for establishment the first 3 years?
Yeah, we can definitely provide that information. Yeah.
We have a presenter on Zoom that would like to speak. Oh, yeah. I believe.
Donna, we saw you just joined. You just wanted to say.
Yeah, you know, we weren't I was on with Catherine also. We were given a totally different meeting link. So Catherine should be joining.
Who is Catherine?
From DCAS.
Who?
I don't
From
see
DCAS.
on this link still.
Well, what do we say? We move to a different.
No, so I suppose we can go back to the discussion. I thought
Yeah.
there's some confusion there, but I had a question for you. Where the number 7 is written down, I remember there are existing benches at the boundary of the sidewalk and the plaza. Is there a way to maintain those benches? Because currently there's a lot of people sitting there, and without it, there might be a loss of seating. What is your reason for not keeping it there?
Currently DCAS are debating, do we want to put benches back? So it's definitely something we have to consider moving forward. I think we're looking to, if we're putting benches back, it will be something that is more ADA accessible. Currently, the one there's no back and no armrest. So we're looking into much more easily maintainable benches to put in the area. And we do understand that people who are waiting for buses, that the benches will be closer to them.
So is it your comment, Yoshi, that you would like to consider benches along those little dots?
Yes, I remember in the existing site plan, there's existing benches there right now.
Yeah.
So the proposed,
And people wait for buses on Sutphin.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I know it was said that you would like to increase space for queuing and transparency into the plaza. But I suppose if like 9, like the center is where people are queuing, those benches may do more good than harm.
Yeah.
Come back.
Currently the benches that in between on the trees, and we can look into more closer to the tree pit also, so they get closer to the shade, but also allow people to go in and out the plaza a bit easier.
Great. Do your colleagues want to present at all?
Oh, there she is. I think I just, yeah.
It looks like she is finally joining, but it might be having tech issues. She's stuck, quote unquote, joining rather than in the meeting.
Let's admit her.
She's admitted. It just looks like her computer is having trouble connecting. Oh, there she is.
It looks like she's on now, no?
Yep.
Who is she? Yeah.
It's a representative from DCAS, Catherine
Lawrence, she's the landscape architect in charge of the project.
From the
Working
agency.
closely with us. Yeah.
There she is.
Ah,
Hi, Kate.
Hello.
So
Should I start?
Yeah, we went ahead and have gone through the presentation and had some conversation, but if you want to go ahead and speak to the points you were planning to in your introduction.
All right. My name is Catherine Lawrence. I'm the senior landscape architect for DCAS. We are doing this renovation. The presentation that you see is the renovation of Queens Civil Court Plaza, located at 8917 Sutphin Boulevard.
We've got everyone along. Yeah. We've heard a lot of this already. So
Okay.
Right? So, but I think
yeah.
you asked a really good question, and I'd like to hear the landscape
Sure.
in charge answer. She did a good question. That would be helpful.
Okay, Catherine, your designer did the full presentation. So we had a few questions, but before I share those questions, are there points that you would like to make from DCAS's perspective that would not have been covered by your colleague from Stantec?
Well, basically, I just want you to understand that this is a courthouse. There's security issues that have to be taken into consideration. And it's not meant to be a public plaza. It's more or less used for the courthouse, for the jurors to come out and sit down and relax. And basically, that's how the courthouse wants it to be used.
Okay. Understood. So the question is, we understand there's a great deal of queuing in that plaza. And we had asked your colleague from Stantec if they might do a shade study so that we would make sure that the condition of queuing is as comfortable as it could be and look at that in a more intentional way. So I guess I would ask you the same question. Is that something that DCAS would support the shade study as well as the looking at a more intentional organization of queuing to make it more comfortable?
I'm not too sure what you, there is shade from the building.
But we don't have a shade study, so there's no way for us to understand what it's like in the middle of the day in the summer. A solar study, yeah.
All right, okay. And as far as queuing is concerned, like in the middle of the winter, I mean, they're not queuing outside. There's there's a whole interior, basically, and a security checkpoint that everybody has to go through. Nobody's going to be standing outside, if that's what you're talking about as far as queuing.
Okay, so there's more space.
Yeah, there's we've been getting different information. We were understood from the presentation before you arrived that actually there was a great deal of queuing out of doors. Is that not the case?
No, it's all indoors.
Kate, I was just mentioning there are people who will like slowly let into the interior of the building as they go through.
When there's a large case, but that's not it doesn't happen all the time. And basically, when you look into the interior, they can hold a lot of people inside of the main entrance of the building.
Well, that's good to know. Great. So for those times when we have a great deal of people at a busy case, we would still request a solar study to understand the conditions for people queuing out of doors.
I think also, can I ask a question? Why is the solar study not for the plants? It's for the people?
The solar studies for people. This is Lori Hawkinson. I'm one of the commissioners. I mean, we have one of our commissioners who isn't here today who had said she reviewed the proposal and she's familiar with the site and noted that the plaza does become very crowded with queues. And we're just thinking of the quality of life of people waiting in the summer when it's hot. And we just, I think, you know, it's reasonable to request a solar study from a landscape architect for a space, a public space like this. I understand it's a courthouse, I understand the security. I understand all of that. We understand that very well. So, but we just would like to know how the sun moves in the summer because it's very high. And when there are queues, how and where people sit, that there might be shaded.
Okay. I can sit there and tell you, I have been with DCAS for over 25 years, and I have not seen large queues outside ever. So where this misinformation is coming from, I don't know.
It's from your team. The people
It's from both your team. We've heard that from your team as well as from other commissioners who are familiar with the site and live near it.
I think also the other thing to note, we heard this from the team because when we looked at the design of the site plan, there's a large empty area that was said was supposed to facilitate queuing. So one of the questions we had about the site plan and the impetus was why it's organized in that way, and queuing was given to us as the rationale. So I think that's where the misunderstanding is coming from. But perhaps it would be good if you walked us through the site plan.
Yeah, and I just wanted to, hi, this is Rebecca from PDC as well. Just wanted to add to that and, you know, part of the responses from the resubmission when there was, you know, review request around bifurcating the north area of the plaza and the south area and making more distinct space between those areas. There was the response from the team that, you know, not only queuing, but heavy circulation in and out the door. And so that was a reason seeming from DCAS that the team was trying to maintain the design as is to keep that area open. So if most people are not really queuing or circulating outside and being held within the lobby, then that would bring back up that question from the initial review.
Is there any more questions or comments? Okay, so just to summarize, the commission has requested a solar study to ensure that our fellow citizens are as comfortable as they could be while they're waiting to serve their jury duty. We have also asked the team to make sure they create a care guide for the establishment of plants because there won't be irrigation. And also to study whether the benches along Sutphin can be replaced for those who are waiting for buses. That right? Did I miss anything?
Yeah, it sounds great.
Great.
Yeah, that sounds
Thank
great.
you.
I also just wanted to thank you for your presentation and apologize. We were running early and I realized that might have put a few of you at stress, but we just wanted to acknowledge that and thank you for your presence. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bring in the last.
Do you want me? Yeah. Okay. All right. So that concludes. Oh, thank you. That concludes our conceptual review of the Queens Civil Court Plaza. And the last committee meeting item is the preliminary review of the reconstruction of Baisley Park Community Library at 11711 Sutphin Boulevard, also in South Jamaica, Queens. We'll not hear a public testimony or vote on this project today. Presenters, you can start when ready. There you go.
Thank you for inviting us here today. We appreciate thanks. We appreciate. Got it. We appreciate the opportunity to talk about the Baisley Park Library renovation project. I think my name is David Levin. I'm from Levin Betts.
And I'm the outlier. I'm Elizabeth Kennedy, the landscape architect.
So we're going to start talking about the library briefly. We'll just begin by talking about where it's located in Queens, in the South Jamaica neighborhood, also known as the South Side. The site is bounded by a series of commercial and religious institutions, as well as there's a daycare center right next to the library. And the main thoroughfares are Sutphin Avenue that runs this way and Foch Boulevard, which is a very important street as it runs from the neighborhood, right at the heart of the neighborhood, down to Baisley Pond Park, which is the main green infrastructure in the area.
And the library is on the corner of Foch and Sutphin, so there's an opportunity for that sort of corner view. So I can talk a little bit about the existing building. So this is the view from Sutphin, which is where the existing entry is. So the existing entry is here. It's a little bit dark. And then another side glazed area here that actually has an existing fence. So the entries here, as you can see, it's a little bit dark. One of the things we'll point out is this curvilinear form that exists at the front and at the penthouse. But this is the entry along Sutphin. And then this is Sutphin on the corner, and then this is Foch. And one of the things, as you notice, is The Foch side is a basically blank facade. There's an existing side yard that's not being utilized at all. And there's a fence as well. So this is one of the things that we were interested in looking to activate this side yard. So this again, views of Foch, you can see it's a very blank facade. This is the corner of Foch and Sutphin. So again, you sort of see this view, this very kind of blank view, and this is from Foch on the residential side, looking back at the library towards Sutphin. This is kind of the aerial view here, I think is critical in many ways. Again, Sutphin here, the existing entry, and Foch here with the existing side yard that's currently fenced in. One thing just to note, because this will come up later, there's an existing circular theme in the building. That we actually kind of fell in love with that aspect of the building and really looked at this circular theme as we developed the exterior. There's an existing exterior courtyard that's actually being closed in just in order to accommodate a growing population of children in the library as well as elders.
And to note, the building was built in 1968-69. It was designed by an architect named J.A. Daydon. And we can see this circular theme that runs throughout the building. And that's something that we're obviously playing off of. And we can begin to see this.
Yeah, this is the existing site plan with the roof plan. Again, the side yard and the fence. And then this entry here, which you'll see in the plan too. So this is the proposed site plan. We're adding a vestibule that's on the Foch side, but facing Sutphin, enclosing that open courtyard, but still allowing light in for a children's area.
And then it's important to note that the vestibule on the side yard begins to open up a series of opportunities for the building itself as well as the neighborhood. It creates a public plaza, entry plaza. The doors are undercut and shaded from the sun and rain, a small garden behind that vestibule that leads into a rear service entrance. So opening up this whole entire part of the site catalyzes this relationship at the corner.
And Elizabeth's going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute when we kind of go through. We can go through the plans quickly. This is the existing plan. So again, it's very small entry here on Sutphin and this sort of blank wall on Foch. This is the existing courtyard. This is an existing staff office and a multi-purpose room with 2 non-ADA bathrooms. This is the proposed plan. The main intervention is relocating the facade to the Foch side to activate that side yard, which Elizabeth will talk about from a landscape standpoint, and opening up the Sutphin side. Keeping the circular theme of the rest of the library. So this vestibule has a curvilinear form, and then enclosing this area with light for the children's area. This is the existing second floor. There is an existing penthouse. We're not removing that part of the building, but it's not going to be active. We're going to use it as a light well just because it's not ADA accessible. And yes, in the mechanical space, and then the existing mechanical equipment that is not being replaced. So this is the proposed. It cannot because there's no ADA accessible, so we're not adding a lift or anything. Yeah, unfortunately. There are green roofs though, and so that's come up with the community board if there would be a way to experience those more, but we will be greening the 2 new roofs that we're incorporating.
I'm just curious. How many floors is there going to?
It's mostly one with just this one, we'll call it kind of a pop-up, a penthouse space.
So it's one low story.
Yeah.
And this is totally.
Yeah. But it's basically not being used because it's not ADA accessible. So we're even removing the bathrooms and actually doing a cutout in that floor to bring it.
All of these buildings, just adding outdoor space. I've built a lot of libraries.
Yeah.
A lot of different locations.
Yeah.
For a lot of different reasons. And one of the things is in communities, they love the outdoor, they love those rooftop spaces, particularly now with teen code or whatever.
Yeah.
What would it take? I mean, they're going to this expense What would it take?
It's mostly space. I mean, one of the reasons we actually, the vestibule is outboard of the existing building in order to capture as much square footage and use as much square footage similarly with the children's area. So I think the largest reason is just that adding a lift and taking up space. They're very starved for space for the patrons. And because we're going to be able to offer an outdoor space at the street level for not just the patrons, but for the general public, I think that was sort of the main. Yeah, no, of course, it's a great
I'm begging the question.
No, and the questions come up, so it's a good one. Yeah.
Technically, we just it would require structural reinforcement and
Yeah.
of course,
A
a rail, all around.
This is the proposed, this is the existing then roof plan. We can look at this quickly. And then the proposed roof plan where we're capturing that space and adding a green roof there as well. This is the existing facade facing Foch. So you can see again, the fence and the blank wall. And these are the areas where we're removing, for moving the facade for windows. So we can just show the proposed, and we have renderings, so it'll be easier to see. So opening up that Foch side with these round 5 foot in diameter windows that give light into the staff offices, the librarian's office, and the vestibule, as well as the new multi-purpose room, and then the landscape that Elizabeth will be talking about. This is from the existing from Sutphin, so you can see is sort of fenced in, the existing entry, sorry, and the small entry here. And so the proposed entry is this new vestibule. The vestibule actually pops out on the Foch side, but the doors are actually still facing Sutphin. And what we're able to do is really open up this portion of the facade, and then this existing round form of what is now going to be the multi-purpose room with an additional window.
So if you're on Sutphin, you don't actually see the doors, right?
Well, you do here, you see.
You're coming from west to east, you don't see it in
I see.
The plaza then steps back.
Okay, I didn't understand. Now I do.
I think the 3D is going to help.
The existing entry is very tight.
Right.
Yeah.
So, we're trying to open that up and make it more generous.
I see.
Yeah. I think we're
While
gonna-
opening up, so, yeah.
These are the two other party wall, the two back wall facades that we're not doing anything to because they're close to, in this case, the church, and on the other side, the children's daycare. These are building sections of existing looking towards Foch with no windows. This is the section through here, which we have what we affectionately call the bookworm that's running along the perimeter on the inside of the library to keep the light and openness on the interior.
And then bringing the light down from these windows.
Correct.
So it can be refurbishing to wash into the teen area. In the space.
This is the other section through these two spaces, as well as then the back area that this is existing, that's currently stepped up. So we're also lowering that floors to make it all ADA accessible, and then popping up that area that's the existing courtyard, but then having clear story windows, so there's still light coming down into that children's area. And then this section, the short section looking towards Sutphin, which is the existing library, and then the proposed that then has also the vestibule. Do you want to talk about the landscape?
Well, to follow Ms. Tish's, Meryl's comment about the engagement with the landscape and the opportunity, we really saw the setbacks on the property as a real, I want to say, jewel to the community. Most of the buildings, the public buildings in the neighborhood do not have this setback, do not have a sort of formal or even informal acknowledgement of the realm between the fully public and the semi-public. And we thought there was an opportunity to reconfigure this landscape arrangement so that there was a community amenity that sort of created a threshold to the library itself. Okay, great, thank you. I would not do that. So what you can see here, and I have to come close because I refuse to get glasses and I can't see, but we are sort of limiting the planting idea at the ground level to two sort of defining planted moments, I would say. One is the planting bed that would define the street edge along Foch Boulevard and create various areas of exterior program, seating courtyards, learning courtyards,
this planting is reminiscent of, actually, it's a butterfly garden planting, so it refers to the nostalgia of early Queens development. And if you're on Facebook at all, you can see that this is rampant, that nostalgia. And we're also talking about bringing this same planting language to the front of the building along Sutphin, so that from the reading room and areas and for this minor entrance and exit, the landscape also sort of engages and has a sense of extension into the interior space. So just to reiterate, there's one area that's more plaza-like, and the other area it's more meadow-like, I would say, in its extension and its treatment of plant materials. Next. So our palette, particularly for the Foch Boulevard planting side, is sort of building on plants that are both commonly found in neighborhood gardens, but also more unique to native plantings and the representation of the larger grass type materials. And so there's a mix planned of Jersey tea shrub, purple coneflower, Jill pieweed, blue cardinal flower, sneezeweed, which guarantees that I can't go there during fall. Bouteloua gracillus blonde ambition, which is so graceful. Little blue stem standing ovation, which is native, but also gives you this pop of color. And Caesareria, which is not native, but boy, is it industrially tough. And it's gorgeous when it's in full bloom and it's blowing. So this sort of palette sort of goes back to the transition in Southeast Queens from what was farmland and what felt like country, particularly for a lot of the families that have been established there for generations. And they felt like when they were moving from Brooklyn and moving from Manhattan, they were moving to the countryside. I happen to know this because that was also my family's experience in this area. And so these plant materials and that sense of scale and proportion is also lending to that idea. Next. We also have a green roof where stormwater detention and management is really important. It's a very simple system of trays super mounted on the insulation and waterproofing system. And in terms of materiality, the idea of creating a continuous surface from the walls to the floor will be continued with the materials in terms of the bricks. This tree sort of made it in to make sure that it's grounded, but the Amelanchier tree, in terms of its scale and understory, also lends a certain proportionality to the entire scheme. And do you want to take over to talk more about that?
Thank you. The materials along the bottom continue what Elizabeth was talking about also in combination with especially the paver, which is this idea of the brick of the building. The existing building is brick. It has 2 different types of brick and about 38 other types of patch brick. So in its current state, it's a bit of a mismatch. On the Foch Boulevard side, it's a darker, kind of more industrial brick. On the Sutphin side. On the Foch Boulevard, it's actually more reddish and orangish, which is sort of the lower brick, if you will. We kind of fell in love with that, the deep red and orange of that brick, and we felt that it gave it could be used for its richness and its optimism. It feels like a much more optimistic brick than the Sutphin side, and it could be used to create an identity for the building in the neighborhood from walls to plaza, as you see in front of you. And we felt that this idea of a strong statement of reddish orange would be a positive approach in the neighborhood. It's rounded out with terracotta for roof cap to match the brick, random orbit stainless steel for the window systems, and Corten steel for the planter that Elizabeth was talking about in the landscape.
So this is just some of the lighting as well, which is most of the exterior lighting that's happening along this the planted areas and the bench, just to sort of highlight the surroundings. And then these are some of the cut sheets of some of these lights, again, to kind of illuminate low and just to the plants themselves. and the plaza. Yeah, you want to talk through the.
Yeah, staying with the theme of brick, we were just looking at some of the different types of brick arches that were used on the building. We've been studying rowlock arches, soldier arches, different ways of creating these apertures, especially in the round windows that continue the circle theme of J. Dedon's building. These occur in a rounded in plan as well as a straight window in plan, and we're looking into how to bend round glass. And these are some of the rendered images that show this sort of richness and the identity, especially when passing over across from intersection into the plaza. You know that you're in the precinct of the library immediately due to the change in material.
So this is again the view from Sutphin and Foch, so that corner view that we showed at the beginning. This area is much more opened up in transparency of the kind of welcoming facade to the community, and then the new vestibule that is still facing Sutphin, but on the box.
And I think one of the important things about this image is what we were really trying to do is to take the circular theme that was within the original design. There were some collisions due to pragmatics of the way things were built at the time. And we've tried to kind of give each form its own integrity, its own identity, while keeping them in an assemblage that we hope is holding together, especially using the red brick. And you can also see the circular window theme that pops out onto the round community room that will also provide a glow in the evening time.
And this again is the box, so opening that up the side garden, puncturing it with these 5-foot diameter windows. And just going back to the Sutphin view, then you can see the entry here, this being more opened up. I think there's one close up view at that entry. So sorry, that for art. We have identified several, sorry, go ahead. No, sorry. We have identified several areas for the potential location for the percent for art. So either in this vestibule on the exterior of the multipurpose room or in the ceiling of the children's area. And I believe that's it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Question?
Great. Very cool. Thank you very much. Very ambitious renovation. I wish you did have more money. I know that's always a struggle because it's a one-story building. I mean, I really appreciate the landscape strategy also. It's very thoughtful and elegant. And I mean, I don't really have any questions. I initially asked questions about the ground and but I understand what you're trying to do with the materiality of the building coming out and having more of a presence. I was curious about the section. It's probably a detail, but oh wait, where are you? Are you in DD? Where are you guys?
We're just at the
Early DD. Oh, design development. So they're like schematic design development. So they don't have the artists yet. Lament.
Yeah.
So I was wondering about the section through the round window and what you're thinking about when you cut through it like there. Right. So it's deep, it's just the depth of the wall. And yeah, I'm just thinking of people from the inside looking out. It seems very cool.
Right. The nail on one of many heads. The vestibule is the construction of it will be load-bearing brick. So we will have 2 whites of brick inside. We will insulate, and then we'll have another white of brick outside. So it's creates a situation that we can follow where the window can pocket into that insulation layer. And then providing the visibility to the 2 whites. We're looking at a rowlock arch. Actually, this is more of a soldier, but you can just see lightly inside is rowlock.
Inside, or what's going on here?
Inside the vestibule is solid. It's the brick of it. It's actually the structural brick
on the inside.
The inside.
Oh, because this is the inside of the library, that window is
Yes,
white.
yes.
I see.
Yes.
Sorry, that's confusing. Like inside the vestibule
Is
is
brick.
brick and it's.
And what's the depth of that? Like,
Yeah.
is that an opportunity there for like a cool little seat for kids to read or whatever in those beautiful?
Yeah.
windows?
Where this is the brick inside the vestibule, and there's a bench.
No, I
inside.
meant in the building itself. You were showing that there's a kind of thickness to the round, well, I don't know if there's.
No, it's those windows all occur in the staff offices.
Oh,
Which is. Yeah, which is this window right
that
here. So there is an opportunity at that point.
could be
Yeah.
the favorite seat in the whole library.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you're in the staff room or from the reading room, do you get us, is there any translucency where you might understand that window?
Yeah, there's, these are glass doors in here, so that when you're in this, you're still getting some shared light. And actually, the interior, this is what I was saying, we kind of affectionally call the
Oh, because then
bookworm.
you have books, so you have to have.
We have books, but then above that, we have transoms. So
Oh,
the
there's-
light that's here, you get a shared light that's gonna occur in the sort of transom. So the books will be only at a certain height, and then there'll be the transom that'll become shared light. Similarly, in areas where there aren't windows, that shared light, because there's quite a bit of light that's gonna be coming from the clear story windows in the children's area, that there'll be some shared light here for the staff lounge, and these two exterior walls of the building that there's no possibility to have fenestration.
And what's the ceiling in that meeting room that? I don't know what you call that room.
The
room-
multi-purpose
The
room?
multi-purpose
This
room.
Yeah.
So you said the ceiling of the little room is available to the artists. The
Oh,
other guy, but you
here,
didn't
that's
see, there you said the wall, not the ceiling. Like, what if somebody wanted to do all ceilings?
Yeah, so this one is higher, and so there's an opportunity to do an artwork in the ceiling here. The rest of the library is getting a sort of a mesh ceiling that allows
Oh,
for
acoustical.
acoustics,
Everything
and
up
also,
there. Oh.
yeah. And also just to make the 1-story feel taller, but then to have a sort of datum, so that it faces.
It's up there, okay, got it. Great, thank you.
Just, I find this just terrific. It's just, this is the excitement of new designs for libraries that I think are just superb. Just one, this was in our notes also, and I think quickly asked, maybe by Lori or others. Do you have any idea of when you might be ready to come back for the project review? I noticed that was asked. And of course, it's not our purview, but I saw the budget. And I'm not an expert, nor is it our purview, but it seems like a lot of money, but then it really doesn't, given the ambition and the very good choices that you've made. So just too quickly, if you could just give us a sense.
Of when we would be coming back for.
Yeah, and what you think in terms of, you know, your own work with the city and so on. Is it a year? Is it 10 months? Is it
No,
what-
no, I think we're aiming to be back in the spring.
Okay,
Yeah. early spring if possible, yeah,
that's good.
yeah.
Okay, with this budget roughly years and, okay. Okay, thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you.
I have a quick question for Elizabeth. For you. I agree with my fellow commissioners. It's a very elegant renovation and like playful also, which is
Yeah.
delightful. But you were speaking about some outdoor rooms on the Foch side. I wonder if you could just point out the circulation of how people, like, let's say I'm bringing a group of kids out, like how would I move from the library to those outdoor spaces that you designed so beautifully?
Well, you have two options. You would have to circulate around the rotunda, or you would come out the service.
I see, there's a door
Yeah,
there
too.
too.
Yeah, we wanted to make sure that there were no dead ends.
Right.
Absolutely. And so there's really a pathway through that is also reinforced by the benches. These are, I didn't mention, but those are benches and forms as well. And an opportunity for movable furniture. We thought that that was important as part of the public engagement. We don't usually get a lot of movable furniture in Southeast Queens. And so this was a playful gesture or gift to the community. Similarly here, the form of the planting bed edging also just brings you around the forms without being, specifically literally tied to the architectural forms as well.
So is there, I don't recall from the rendering, so can you occupy the landscape on that?
Not in the front.
Not in the front.
Not in the front.
That's meant to be
Yeah.
just,
A planting bed that actually slopes back towards the building. That's the ambition for it. We still have to figure out the geometry for that. But from on the inside, you get the sense of continuity of the ground plan.
oh, nice. I see. And then you were talking about butterflies, but I didn't see, I'm sure you're going to put butterfly bush in your planting pot.
Well, it's considered invasive, so we always look for the alternative, and we just load up on Asclepia because
Oh,
that's.
see, I didn't realize it was considered.
Yeah, it's invasive.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
good to know.
Yeah.
So the planter on the left side of the slide is higher,
Yes.
so
it-
that makes that space.
That
of room
edge,
in
yeah.
there, And the other
Mhm.
one's lower.
And then this
That's
one,
lower.
this is lower, and the intention is to try and figure out a way of sloping back towards the glazing.
Can you go back to the schematic of the interior? So I'm just curious, the children's center, that is an existing structure, so that is where the opening is new.
Yes, there's an existing
That's correct.
courtyard there, right? now, so basically-
It's open to the sky currently.
No, I meant the doorway to the structure, how you get into that area, is it walled off a little bit?
There's a glass enclosure because it's the existing is an outside courtyard. And then we're gonna be glazing it, but with an interior glazing, but then it's accessible as a room. It's not outside anymore.
No, I
Oh,
meant,
sorry.
I meant the way that it opens here, yeah, that doorway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is that existing now?
No, because this is an outside space right now, so this whole thing is enclosed in glass currently.
Okay, but it's opening to where other people are seating and all
This is-
the computer
This is
terminals?
the children's area.
Oh, that's.
And this is the children's librarian, yeah, so this whole, they're intentionally in this part of the library, just from a security and protection standpoint, so they're away from the doors.
Okay.
Any more questions or comments? Okay, well, just to summarize, all commissioners agree that this is a lovely and very fitting renovation of what will be a very treasured community space with an excellent landscape plan to boot. So thank you for that. We look forward to seeing you in the spring.
Great. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Thank you.